Where are you?
Upstairs! Teddy? Is that you?
Lissy!
Right up the stairs, Teddy.
This is her room. Are you paying attention? Ruth. Can you imagine? One moment you're living a perfectly happy life, and then nothing. Darkness. Forever and ever. Maybe there's something here that can tell us what happened to her.
This is a waste of my time.
We might be the only ones left to tell her story, Edward.
You're just being melodramatic. I'll help you look.
Ruth was an artist.
This is very primitive.
Have you ever met a child, Edward? She wasn't Monet, she was 8. This must be the village church. That's Ruth and her family on one side of the aisle, Simon and his father on the other.
The community divided.
She found something.
Where's that supposed to be?
A cave. Or the...
Mine. It could be. But what did she find?
something important enough to draw.
Draugen.
Hey, the undead monster from those folk tales you read.
What an odd book for a child to have.
I don't know. Children love scary stories. This looks interesting. Read some of it to me, please.
In Norwegian folklore, the appearance of Draugen, the reanimated corpse of a drowned mariner, heralds death. Draugen haunts the black seas in a shattered boat. The beast has a man's body and wears a sou'wester, but instead of a head, there is tangled seaweed, and the revenant's chilling cry freezes mortal blood to ice. Draugen has the power to enter the dreams of the living. If you wake from such a dream, you have been spared, though someone close to you... That's enough of that. It's nonsense, of course. Not something a child should be reading.
Do you think Draugen took our boat? Maybe he's out there, on the fjord, waiting for nightfall so he can return to shore.
No.
And your soul lacks poetry, Edward Charles Harden. I pity you. That must be Ruth and Simon's fathers.
Perhaps. They weren't on the best of terms.
They look like they want to kill each other.
To a child, maybe it looked worse than it was.
Children are more insightful than you give them credit for, Teddy Bear. Ruth never finished this. What does that spell? F-O-R-B.
For Banelson. The curse.
Who's that figure supposed to be? It's creepy. It looks a bit like the Draugen in her book.
A figment of her imagination. But the box she drew... It looks like this box under her desk.
Really? Let me see. Pull it out. What is this?
I believe this might qualify as actual treasure.
Is that Norwegian money?
Sort of, but Ancient. Viking coins.
Are they valuable?
Not in terms of monetary value, but historically. They belong in a museum.
Looks like Ruth had her own private museum.
Why would a child have these artifacts?
She must have enjoyed collecting and playing with them.
These are much too precious to play with. She should have given these to an adult.
She was a child, Edward. To her, they were just shiny toys. Wait! The pin! On the doll!
This is where it came from, her collection.
But where did she find these treasures?
If we're to believe her drawing, perhaps the mine. She may have found a gravesite. Wherever she found them, she wanted to keep them hidden.
You think someone found out?
These items wouldn't necessarily be worth much, except to a historian or archaeologist.
What if this is how... I mean, if someone learned she'd been collecting treasures, they might be willing to do terrible things. There's a story here. The treasure box, the drawings.
The overactive mind of an imaginative child.
She didn't imagine the Viking artifacts. You shouldn't be so dismissive. The drawings could be her way of dealing with traumatic events.
This is what happens when I read you the principles of psychology. You get notions.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Ruth was troubled. The village was troubled, and... Is that a bell?
The church bell. Someone's here. Maybe Betty.
Why would Betty ring the church bell?
Perhaps she's in trouble. I need to get to the church right now.
Wait, isn't it more likely to be the person you saw the other night? We should be careful.
I told you, I'm not sure that was anything. Come on.
Go ahead. I'll catch up with you before you get there. I need a minute to think about all of this.
July 24th, memorial service. A commemoration of the accident at the mine this past summer. No services after that.
Do you think that maybe
No.
Betty...
I'd know.
But...
You wouldn't understand. Elizabeth and I, we have a bond.
God, Edward.
Why board up a church?
To keep the ghosts from escaping?
Regardless of how they got past the boards, there's someone in there.
Gone fishing?
God is not here.
Well, of course he isn't. You won't find God in a church. God is the wind in the trees, the grass between your toes, the brook that runs
That's
through...
nature, not God.
Who did this?
Someone who'd lost their faith.
Can you peek through the boards? See anyone?
No,
Listen! The bell! They're still in there!
Hello? I heard the bell!
This is giving me the
I'm here to help.
heebie-jeebies.
These boards look flimsy enough to break.
Look at that. The Ethel becomes an Edward. I didn't think you had it in you, old fruit.
Be quiet. Betty? Are you here? Hello? This is Edward Harden. I'm looking for my sister,
Stop
Elizabeth.
shouting, Edward. We're alone. There are only ghosts here.
There are no ghosts.
I don't know about that. What's this rope for?
The bell.
This is the bell we heard ringing?
I don't see any other bells.
So you have to stand here and pull this rope to ring it.
Yes.
But there was no one here. You didn't see anyone, right?
No. No one.
Ghosts. I'm telling you. It's ghosts. So what happened to the hunchback of Grovik?
They must be here still. There's only the... Lissy. Look. Betty's gloves. They are definitely Betty's.
Oh,
She got
for
these
sake.
in Boston before she left for New York. She bought them at Woolworth. I remember the day She's here.
Where? And why would she leave her clothes lying around? It doesn't make
Breadcrumbs.
sense.
She's sending me a message. She knew I'd recognize her gloves. Her hat. She's left a trail for me to follow, like Ariadne's red thread.
We're not in a
Betty would
labyrinth.
have left more crumbs.
Betty, you're turning into such a pill. What happened here?
The sign on the door. God is not here. Their faith was challenged, and it didn't survive. That bell still bothers me.
What's that?
The last sermon that was held here.
What does it say?
The vicar's handwriting is hard to decipher, and the language. He talks about the village being divided for 20 years. This sermon was held on the anniversary of the accident this past summer. He's asking the congregation to help heal old wounds, to forgive, move on. Something to the effect of, you sit in separate aisles in God's house.
Like Ruth's drawing. I told you, she was perceptive.
It sounds like Grovik was split in two, between those who stood by Johann and those who supported Frederick.
Because of Ruth?
The sermon is from before that. No, this is all about the preceding 20 years of division and disagreements. Tilly varandra.
Edward?
Forgive each other. It addresses Johann and Frederick directly, but I wonder if they were even here.
Remember the wedding picture? They were close friends once. How could they allow their grudge to escalate until...
You call each other traitors, but the only thing you've betrayed are the bonds that unite us. Here's something else. Many of you believe Grovik was cursed 20 years ago. God has not cursed you. This curse is of your own making.
Ruth's drawing mentioned a curse. What do you think that means?
It means they believed they were cursed, and that they needed something or someone to blame for their misfortune. What are you doing? We're in a church.
I thought you didn't believe in God.
I do believe in civility. The church book, a record of births and deaths.
So we can find out what happened to the people in the village?
And Elizabeth. I mean, if she was dead...
Her name would be in the book.
Vandals. Tore it to pieces.
I don't think the missing pages left the church. Look. How many pages are missing?
I counted 4.
They're probably all still here. I know. Let's make it a competition. 1-0 to Team Me.
They considered this a sacred place. For them to destroy it. This was an act of desperation and anger.
I wanted you to find that one. I know what a rotten loser you are. The final dinner.
The Last Supper. Who taught you about the New Testament?
I pick up on things. Most folks aren't heathens, like you. Found another one. You get it. It's right here. Jesus looks sad.
What reason would Jesus have to be happy?
Don't be blasphemous.
Given that this is all fiction, blasphemy is a contradiction.
Heretic. I've never seen you read the Bible before.
I've read the Bible many times. It's an important historical document. For he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us.
Did you just translate that into Old English?
I happen to know the verse by heart.
You still manage to surprise me sometimes.
They considered this a sacred place. For them to destroy it. This was an act of desperation and anger.
You found another one? Don't forget about this page. Two for two. A tie. Good job, Teddy,
Stop,
old bean.
Missy. This is not a game. Betty's out there.
Oh, horse feathers. Stop being so gosh darn tedious, Edward. Betty, 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 will you ever shut up about your precious Betty? Put those pages back in the book, and I'll stop trying to cheer you up.
This book goes back years. It lists births and deaths. Here's the third Fretland brother. The one who died in a cave-in. Someone added the word Forbannelsen, probably quite recently.
What does that mean again?
Curse. That word is all over this book. Not just the men who died in the mine, but other deaths in the last 20 years.
Ruth's drawing and the sermon both mentioned a curse. What do you think it means?
I don't know. There were surprisingly few births.
Perhaps they blame that on the curse as well.
Look here. Ruth Elsa Fretland. She was buried in the cemetery. And the next entry, Simon Fretland. Now this is interesting.
Simon is dead? Oh, that's dreadful.
He drowned the day after Ruth died. Probably no coincidence. See what's scribbled next to it?
Mord?
Murder.
Who killed him? Ruth's father? Or the mob that trashed the store?
It doesn't say. After the children, a half-dozen deaths in a single week.
The curse.
It's listed as the cause for every single death.
Maybe there really was a curse.
Primitive superstition. But something changed after Ruth and Simon. It might explain why there's no one around.
Edward, if it killed everyone, how's that not a curse? What does that word say? Next to those names at the bottom.
Traitor.
Edward? What's wrong?
Final entry. There's no name. Alice, what if...
Oh, Edward, no.
Betty.
It doesn't mean she's...
She's not dead. She can't be. I'd know.
Teddy.
I need to see the grave for myself. It's not Betty. Betty's still alive.
Teddy? Where are you going? Don't leave me! Edward!
You better not be here, Betty. I'll never forgive you. Where is it? I don't see it. This one. It's unmarked.
What are you doing? Have you gone completely mad?